Good morning and welcome to Godcast with Wanda. Today we're going to start Daniel. I'm so excited. Prophecy. Okay. So if you will, get your Bible. You're going to need three things. You're going to need a Bible. You're going to need a pad because you're going to want to take notes. This is something you're going to use throughout the rest of the Bible. You will never understand prophecy if you don't take notes because you're going to have to refer back to them a lot. And you're going to need something to write with. And I like a highlighter also because I highlight things in my Bible. So if you don't have those things, stop the film right now and go get them and then come back. So today, let me give you a little bit of background. Judah is fixing to go into captivity. Now Judah is the southern two kingdoms from Judah and Benjamin that are called Judah. The other 10 kingdoms, which were the other 10 brothers, have already been captured. They were captured 150 years earlier. They were going to capture Judah, but that's a long story. But anyway, now Judah they're so full into sin, they have forgotten God, that even in the temple, the rulers and the priests are worshiping Tammuz and idols of reptiles and things like this. That talks about it, I think, in Ezekiel 8. So let's get started here. I'm going to hit the highlights until we get to chapter 7 because chapter 1 through 6 in Daniel covers things that Daniel will see, things that Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, then Daniel has a dream, and then things from 7 to 12 are things that are in the future that are prophetic, that we're living today. So this is where prophecy from Daniel in the Bible, in the Old Testament, comes alive and kind of explains what's happening in the Middle East today. It's very important. I've got new glasses, so excuse me. It's very important to understand this. If you understand the book of Daniel, you'll understand the book of Revelation. And I'm going to go very slow. I will repeat everything 100 times. You might get a little bored with it. Open your books, if you will, to Daniel 1. I'm not going to read all this. I'm going to start reading the dream. But Daniel 1 talks about the captivity. There are 3 captivities of Judah. They start in 605 BC. There are 3 captivities, and Daniel and his friends start in the first captivity. They work in the king's palace. Now, what they did in those days when they captured someone, and they took the rulers and the royal family, and they would give them Babylonian names of gods, Babylonian gods, to kind of to degrade them to begin with, but to change their whole way of thinking, to change their whole life. And then they would train them in the Babylonian language and then the Babylonian foods. Okay, so Daniel and his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and those are Babylonian names of gods. They all have Babylonian names. They're put into training for 3 years to work under the king's palace. Now, in order to work in the king's palace, you had to be a eunuch, and the reason that was is to make sure that the line of the king was pure so that no one could have relations with anyone in the palace. So Daniel is working under the head eunuch, so it is assumed that he probably is a eunuch also. So anyway, they go from there, and Daniel's in training, and the first thing that happens after they get names, they get clothes, and they get in situated, is they're giving food from the king's table. And Daniel doesn't like this because as I've never profaned myself, I've never done anything unclean. And to be unclean, Daniel asked them if they could eat vegetables for 10 days. He said, well, the king will kill me if anything happens to you. So Daniel persuaded him. But the reason he could not eat from the king's table is because they ate things sacrificed to pagan gods. Okay, just like Israel did. Israel would sacrifice a lamb, and parts of it were given to the priests. The rest of it was given to the people. Same thing. So that was just tradition back then. So Daniel did not want to eat anything sacrificed to a pagan god. He was true to God. He prayed 3 times a day. You'll see throughout Daniel how godly he was. He's tested many times, and you'll see that, but God protects him. And I believe Daniel is put in this position because later on in Daniel, you're going to find out that Daniel reads from Jeremiah that they're only going to be in captivity for 70 years. So Daniel has hope. And as long as they went along with the Babylonian king and the Babylonian customs, they were protected. God gave them land, he gave them food, they were well protected, and he also gave them, at the end of 70 years, time to go back to Jerusalem. We'll talk about that later. So now they're working in the king's palace, they're on a vegetable diet for 10 days, and they look better than anyone else. They continue on with their vegetarian diet. They are entered into the king's palace and into his service. And then the king tests them to see how they're doing, and he accepts them in. Now, chapter 2 talks about a dream that Nebuchadnezzar has, and this dream is very important. Daniel has the same dream later on, means a little bit different. They're going to get different meanings from it, but this dream is the same dream with just different names, and it's a statue he's dreaming of. Nebuchadnezzar has this dream, and he kind of knows how sorcery, witchcraft, the wise men around him work. You tell us the dream and we'll interpret it for you. Well, this time Nebuchadnezzar says, no, you tell me what I dreamt and interpret it for me. And they says, well, there's no man alive who can do that. He says, well, if you don't do it, you and your families will be killed. So they're panicky. And Daniel comes down, he's down the hall or someplace, and he meets one of the men. He says, what's going on? What's going on? He says, the king is going to kill us all. He's going to kill you all. He's after us because we can't tell him his dream. Daniel says, take me to the king. Now, by saying take me to the king, he's risking his own life because a eunuch going to the king without being asked or summoned, death penalty. But for some reason, Nebuchadnezzar lets him in. He says, I can't do it, but there's this God in heaven can tell you. Give me a little while. Let me go pray, and I'll give you an answer. Your God will give you an answer. So he says, okay, you've got it. So he gathers his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and all four of them now are in his upper room, and they're praying to God. Now, this shows us several things. This shows us that there's prayer, and that prayer works through group prayer. Prayer works through having prayer partners, and God listens to you. God listens to all prayer. Daniel prays. He and his friends go, and they go pray, and they pray to God, and this is the prayer they pray. Daniel answered and said, he said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and seasons. And he removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and the knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep, secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, God, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we have asked you. For you have made known to us the king's demand. So here, God has answered Daniel's prayer. Now, when we pray to God, God answers our prayers, maybe not in our time, but his time. So here, Daniel has asked for a prayer, and it's kind of an immediate prayer because the king is fixing to kill everybody. So God has given him an immediate answer here. So Daniel asked to be taken back to the king, and he's going to explain to the king what his dream was. And this is found in, let's start with chapter 2, verse 36. You have to excuse me, I'm catching a little bit of a cold here. This is the dream. Now we will tell you the interpretations of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings. The God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hands and has made you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. Now, Nebuchadnezzar's dream was a statue, and the head of gold was at the top. So he says, you are the head of gold. Now, about this time, Nebuchadnezzar is thinking, oh, I am the head of gold. I'm the head. Gold is the most purest form of a mineral. And then he continues on. He said in verse 39, he says, but after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours, and another and a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And iron that crushes that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all others. I'll explain this in just a minute. Whereas you saw that the feet of toes in clay, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic and clay. And as for the toes of the feet were partly of clay and iron, partly of iron, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, and they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Now, this is a whole story of a whole history of Israel, of the world, and of the second coming of Jesus Christ. So the head of gold is Babylon. He just told him, you are the head of gold. So that's all Nebuchadnezzar knows. He says that there's going to be another kingdom behind you, and then a third kingdom, and then a fourth kingdom. And then there's going to be a kingdom that's going to last forever. The second kingdom is going to be a Medo-Persian kingdom. It doesn't tell us here. We find that out in Daniel's dream. The third kingdom will be the Greek kingdom, the Greece. And Alexander the Great will lead that. The fourth kingdom will be the Roman kingdom, partly of iron and clay. It says the division of it. If you know the history of Roman, there was Romulus and Remus, and the brothers, I think one brother killed another brother to take over the kingdom, so it was divided. So here you have the Roman kingdom. And then another kingdom that's going to last forever and ever. This is when Jesus comes back. This is after the tribulation, and I'm going to explain all of that. Daniel explains all of that later on. But for now, this is Nebuchadnezzar's dream. This is a forewarning of what's fixing to happen. Now, Nebuchadnezzar is getting in his mind that he is powerful. He has a lot of control. He is the head of gold. If someone told you you were the head of gold, would your kind of head expand and you think great things, get kind of prideful? Well, this is what happens to Nebuchadnezzar. But for now, just put down that the head of gold is Babylon. We're going to come against that again. The silver chest is the Medo-Persian Empire because it has two arms. The torso is going to be the Greece Empire, the bronze. The legs are iron. The feet and clay. This is the kingdom to come during the tribulation. During now, we're seeing a lot of that right now. And then a stone made from heaven will tear the whole statue down. And it will be Jesus Christ that comes back in the second coming. Might be a little confusing, but hang with me. We're going to get there, and I'm going to explain every bit of it. So for now, Judah has been captured by Babylon. Babylon is ruling by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar has put them into captivity for 70 years, and he's fixing to build a statue. Now, one other thing to remember is that Babylon is the second most mentioned name in the Bible. Do you know what the first one is for a city? Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mentioned more in the Bible than any other city, and then Babylon. And there's a reason for that. What happened in Genesis chapter 11 with Nimrod? He built a pagan society, a pagan world that started with him. That's where paganism started. That's where the worship of another god started, was in Babylon, Genesis chapter 11. All ties in. It's come here now. They've been captured. All of Israel's been captured by this pagan nation. They've been given pagan names. They're fed pagan food. And it's not just Daniel and these four people in the castle. They've captured all of the people. All of the people. They're not right in Babylon, but they're in the surrounding areas of Babylon. Daniel's inside the inner city. He's in the palace. He's got the king's ear. And Ezekiel is with the people. Study the book of Daniel. Start reading ahead of me. Next time we'll be talking about the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar builds because he's gotten very bold and powerful. He's in control. He wants to show everybody he's the head of gold. And then we'll probably be going into Daniel's dream because everything here starts to get symbolic. Don't get confused. Hang with me. We're going to get there, and it's going to take a while. It's going to be a little bit at a time. Please share this. Please subscribe. I'll try to put this out every Tuesday morning so that you'll know when to expect it. Thank you for joining me.